Skywatch Media News for the second week of January 2018. Hi everyone. There has been a series of interesting, if not quite discerning, events that have occurred in the course of 1 week since the beginning of the new year. If you consider the type of events that have already developed and which are now developing, then there exists a strong indication that something is definitely not right with the planet. Something quite extraordinary is happening, which I will explain here shortly. When we discuss the probability of the Earth going into a tailspin, in which the axial tilt has increased, even if just by a degree or two from its normal 23 degrees, or whether the planet is in a severe wobble due to some unforeseen reason, in which case the Earth is attempting to adjust to a dramatic shift in its normal rotational pattern, then you begin to realize that our world is experiencing a set of events that spell trouble, not only for 2018, but for many years, if not decades, going forward. We understand that the world will not end on any given date, as some have predicted. But it is obvious for anyone who pays close attention to our planet, it is trying to adjust to the changes that are unfolding. In August 2017, the ushering in of the years of tribulation was on full display in a barrage of events of biblical proportions. Shortly after the Great American Eclipse, a series of shocking events took place that have baffled scientists and meteorologists alike. From the Great Texas Flood, in which 5 feet of rain fell on Greater Houston, to the devastation wrought by a quick succession of immense tropical cyclones, which brought life to a standstill across the Caribbean, 2017 was a year of great misfortune and unexplainable tragedy. As we begin 2018, many regions of the U.S. Commonwealth of Puerto Rico remain in the dark, many months after Hurricane Maria knocked out all electrical grids across the region. Why is our government not responding to the pleas for help from its citizens in the Caribbean, who are suffering the most and receiving very little federal assistance in their ongoing recovery efforts? In 2017, we witnessed an unprecedented sea phenomenon happening in many parts of the world, especially in South America. On the Atlantic coast, the waters were suddenly and mysteriously retreating from the shores, not in any normal manner attributed to the moon's gravitational effect, but in some unexplained manner that scientists attempted to dismiss as caused by upper atmospheric disturbances as a result of the Atlantic hurricanes that happened to be thousands of miles to the north at that time. At the same time that the sea was retreating on the Atlantic side, a massive tidal surge was happening all the way across the continent on the Pacific side in Chile, where massive waves crashed ashore. An unusual event of this caliber is referred to as the oceans in opposition, in which the waters on either side of a continent or a large landmass move in opposite directions. Now that the sea phenomenon has begun anew in 2018, what will be their excuse this time around? I'll comment more on this in a moment. There have been many strange events that have happened since the time of the Grand Eclipse of August 2017, suggesting that the great spectacle in the sky was in fact the precursor to a sequence of horrific events that will come upon the Earth in what we now call the latter days. What we know so far about this year is that the world is going to be subjected to a number of earth-wrenching changes. Scientists have already acknowledged that 2018 is going to be the year for big earthquakes. Maybe they are attributing their sober predictions of major earth changes on a solar cycle in which sun activity comes to a halt and cosmic solar radiation then intensifies. which would then become their rationale for explaining the recent bizarre series of events. But should we be satisfied that they are accurate in their interpretation of events and what may be causing them? So let's resurrect the untold story about what is happening to our planet this time around, and what is thought to be the underlying cause of the unprecedented changes that are happening today. If the Earth is in a severe wobble or a tilting more than the 23 degrees that is the norm, then this could easily explain why the oceans are in opposition, where we see both a tidal surge and a retreat occur at the same moment in different locations. A sloshing motion would so agitate the sea as to create this effect. In the span of 3 days in the first week of January of 2018, on the Pacific edge of South America, there was a significant receding of the waters in Ecuador, followed 2 days later by a sudden and unexpected tidal surge in Colombia. Let's have a look. In addition to the bizarre movement of the oceans in recent months, the Earth's climate is creating havoc in both hemispheres. The immense winter cyclone that struck the east coast of the United States, referred to as a bombogenesis nor'easter, took on the characteristics of a hurricane, as shown here. The historic storm was dubbed a bomb cyclone by meteorologists because of how rapidly the barometric pressure had dropped. It produced such a huge storm surge in coastal cities of Massachusetts that the waters that inundated the local streets virtually froze vehicles in feet of ice, in a scene reminiscent of the movie The Day After Tomorrow. Heavy snow and blizzard conditions in both Spain and Italy trapped thousands of motorists in their vehicles, prompting rescue operations on January 7th. Accumulation of snow of this depth in these regions is very rare and almost unheard of. Further to the south, in Algeria, snow covered the Sahara Desert for the second winter in succession. This region of the world hasn't reported snowfall in more than 40 years, but now it would seem that snow is becoming an annual event in the Sahara Desert. These images tell the story of a changing planet. While North America's east coast is experiencing dramatic low temperatures, Australia's heat wave is so hot it's causing the roads to melt. A big stretch of the Hume Highway has melted under extreme heat, as shown here. With temperatures reaching 115 degrees in portions of southern Australia, the country is now bracing for catastrophic wildfires. All of these events happening in the first week of January would indicate that the Earth is trying to balance itself from what may actually be a severe wobble caused by external forces. From extreme climate abnormalities across the northern hemisphere to an anomalous outflow of the waters in the southern hemisphere, scientists are attempting to explain the inexplicable. When Ecuador witnessed the sea disappearing at the beginning of this year, officials from that country indicated that the phenomenon was caused by the perihelion of the Earth being closer to the sun during the first week of January, an explanation that local residents did not accept. After all, similar anomalous outflows occurred last year, and they could not accurately explain them either. They just invented a similarity of explanations with general formulations, such as a full moon perigee, or such things as wind variations or waves of atmospheric energy. What was witnessed by millions of people in 2017, and now again in the new year, is something that no one seems to fully understand, and it is still a real mystery. What is really happening may be threatening our world and all life. Earth changes and extreme weather anomalies keep on coming, as if there is no end to the chaos that they create. In the wake of these events, the same question always comes up. What is causing this? Basic theory suggests that climate change will lead to more extreme weather, but making the link to individual events is difficult. Climate researchers tend to believe that climate change is primarily caused by humans, by means of the overconsumption of products that produce greenhouse gases, the result of which have led to a warming planet. But are these studies sufficient enough to suspect that the Earth is warming from above rather than below the surface, as some scientists have concluded? It seems reasonable to expect that some climate-related events would have happened regardless of global warming. But now the consensus is that humanity is to blame for some of the most extreme weather phenomena today. It's true that the world's climate is heading into uncharted territory, and that the weather is falling outside of the historical norms. But where should the blame be squarely placed? Is the Earth heating up from above, from below? And are we just on a wild goose chase to discover the cause and who or what is to blame for what is a clear and present danger to civilization? Unexplained occurrences continue to take place in Chelyabinsk, Russia, an area that has witnessed strange sky phenomena before. An immense presence turned night into day on January 7th, creating a loud noise and causing the Earth to move, according to some accounts. A deep blue flash was reported over thousands of kilometers, but scientists disagree over the cause. Experts insist the phenomenon was not man-made, and there were no reports of meteorites striking the ground. Even so, something very significant happened here that remains unexplained. If you were paying close attention, I mentioned halfway through the presentation that based on scientific study and observations by seismologists, there would be an increase in big earthquakes occurring in 2018. If what happened on the evening of January 9th is any indication, then their calculations may be warranted. A magnitude 7.6 earthquake struck in the Caribbean just north of Honduras at a depth of 6.2 miles, prompting tsunami warnings. The earthquake occurred as a result of a strike slip faulting in the shallow crust near the boundary between the North American and the Caribbean plates. The last significant earthquake to hit the North American Caribbean plate boundary was a 1976 magnitude 7.4 event in Guatemala, in which 23,000 people perished. Here is the initial reports on the major earthquake in the Caribbean on January 9th.
We begin with breaking news tonight. There has been an earthquake off the coast of Honduras.
And that's led to tsunami advisories for parts of the Caribbean. Let's go to Chief Meteorologist Craig Setzer. Craig.
Yeah, let's talk about the position of the earthquake. It's here located to the northeast of Honduras. Happened around 9:30 this evening. Initially was thought to be 7.8 magnitude, now revised down to 7.6, but still strong enough to create some type of tsunami threat. Waves up to possibly 4 feet in deep that are radiating out away from the earthquake zone. So the Caymans, Jamaica, as well as Cuba, and as well as the Central American coast, all under the threat for some type of wave action from a tsunami type of wave. And the biggest threat would be, of course, harbors and ports where the water would rush in and rush out and create high current. So folks advise in the Caribbean to stay away from the beaches through the evening hours and overnight hours, and also the Puerto Rico area as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands under a tsunami advisory, not a warning, just an advisory, meaning that you shouldn't go to the beaches and just take precautions near those ports as well as harbors. So here is the fault line that it's on. And basically, we have the Caribbean plate that's slowly pushing to the east and the North American plate pushing to the west. So earthquakes along this zone, not uncommon, but when they happen, of course, we have to take note of them.
On the same day, January 9th, a powerful winter storm hit much of California. The storm dropped several inches of rain on areas that were affected by the Thomas Fire, which was California's largest wildfire in history. The rain triggered flash floods and terrific mudslides, prompting the evacuation of thousands from the danger zone. Sadly, many in this community ignored the warnings to get out of harm's way, a decision that cost the lives of at least 15 at last report. The following images, taken shortly after the mudslide, show the grim devastation wrought by the sudden movement of the hillsides of Montecito, followed by video footage showing the tremendous impact of this event. As we struggle with the obstacles confronting humanity here on earth, let's not forget that there are also great dangers that exist in the heavens, such as this object which recently flew past the earth at half the distance of the moon. If we fail to recognize what lies in wait, or heed the warnings that are given, then we will be subject to the consequences of the dangers that come our way. As we look to the new year, let's also look to the sky, for there is so much to see, a universe of mystery and grandeur, and a new world in waiting for those who seek the truth.